With the commish, Nate.
Now we're in the right place. Holy shnikes, Batman. We're here to talk about the playoffs, and none of this has gone the way that we fully expected. Welcome into Press Pass Live, your weekly OMFL podcast show, the world's longest online CFM in the world. We want you to come be a part of our family, so check us out and consider subscribing as I stream live here every OMFL game that I ever play, plus a little PUBG, a little Call of Duty, a little bit of everything else. But let me welcome in my guest today, your Detroit Lions coach, Mr. Trey. How you doing today on a Monday, buddy?
I'm doing all right, but I'd like to scratch this back. If you wanted to put the replacement team that took the 7th seed, I predicted 3 out of the 4.
You did. You predicted most of these and even predicted some of the ways that we kind of got to where we are. So let's just jump right into it. Let's start in the NFC. No, we're going to hold the NFC because I think there's a lot there to unpack. Let's start at the AFC. We always start the AFC. I want to switch it up. Feel like there's a lot to unpack. You got the Browns beat the Chiefs 31-11. This game was actually a lot closer for a lot longer than the final score ends up showing. Of course, Kansas City lost Mahomes before the playoffs started. He had to go play Mr. Andy Dalton, and Andy actually didn't play all that bad. I expected the Chiefs to go a bit more run heavy than they did, but the Chiefs end up falling to the Cleveland Browns, this one 31-11. Did you get to see any of this game?
I did not. I didn't even know what happened.
Yeah, this game got away from them pretty early. You can see Kansas City did give his rookie Isaiah 18 carries, but Browns did a good job holding him to only 3.9 yards per carry. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 6 for 27, but really this was all about picking on Andy Dalton. 3 interceptions on the day and 4 sacks. Cleveland Browns were the better team, even though the Kansas City Chiefs were the hotter team, or one could consider them to be one of the hotter teams in the AFC. The Browns come out victorious. That brings us over to the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. Buffalo comes away with a 22-14 victory. This one really dominated with both of the teams passing the ball a whole lot. 273 passing yards to 223, but 90 rushing yards to only 33 rushing yards for the Bengals. 2 turnovers for the Bengals ended up being what put them away. But Josh Allen wheels his team to victory. No touchdowns on the day, but bigger than that, no interceptions on the day. Burrow, he did throw a touchdown, but did throw an interception. And your Buffalo Bills, they come away with a victory in this one, 22-14. Any thoughts on the Bills coming away with a victory against the Bengals?
It was. I think we both were pretty sure that they. Actually, no, I believe you called that one. You called the Bills. I thought the Bengals could keep up, and turns out it was just too much.
But they did keep it pretty close, though. This was only an 8-point victory for the Buffalo Bills, and it looks like this one kind of got away or got really tight early, but 2 field goals by Buffalo ended up putting this one away. And then the Jaguars fall to the Miami Dolphins. I don't know why I had a mini stroke there trying to get Miami. Oh, you know what? I know Denver. Let me turn him up. I do it every single time. I got to get better about this, but I turn him up for Press Pass Live, and then when I play shooters, I got to turn them down because they're so freaking loud I can't hear the game, and so I got to keep going back and forth. What's up, Shocks? But the Jaguars, they fall to the Miami Dolphins 19-21. Jacksonville scored 16 points in the fourth quarter to make this a really close game. 192 yards on the ground for the Miami Dolphins. Only 2 turnovers in this game. Pickerson had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked 4 times. Trevor Lawrence had a touchdown and an interception, but 322 passing yards. He was sacked 5 times. Rushing the ball, Akers 11 for 88, Edmonds 2 for 61, Morris 8 for 40. So a lot of guys, not a ton of carries, but kind of gashing them. One guy, Akers, 8 yards per carry. Edmonds, 30 yards per carry. Morris, 5 yards a carry. Morset, 7.6. ETN, 7.2. Lawrence, 9.3. Robinson, 16. Like a lot of yards per carry in this one. Just a lot of guys not getting a ton of carries. But Jacksonville Jaguars, they fall to the Miami Dolphins. What do you think about this one?
If you were to tell me that it was going to be Miami's rushing game versus Jacksonville's passing game, I would have told you were crazy. It just goes to prove that how versatile Miami really is. They have a run game when they need it.
Now, this next one, we're going to hop over to the NFC. We're not going to talk a ton about this one because this was a CPU game as San Francisco 49ers are out there getting married, enjoying his honeymoon. Congratulations, D-Money. Hope you're having a good time. Know that you're not watching this. So he got to play the CPU, and man, he had to squeak this one out. That's it. 3 field goals in the first, in the second, in the third, in the fourth. That 12-point victory ends up giving him just enough. Was it brutal as it seems?
Oh my! There was at points I thought Kobe had thrown the game away. That entire fourth quarter it just seemed like Kobe was mistake, and finally, just at the end, he got the right play at the right time, and it got the win. I was baffled.
Well, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to beat that old pesky CPU. But let's talk about your game. The Minnesota Vikings fall to the Detroit Lions 31-33. This one did not go into overtime, but Minnesota kept this one close. 10 points in the second quarter, 14 points in the third quarter, but couldn't outlast the 21 points in the first half by the Detroit Lions. This one was a pretty close game. 123 rushing yards by you, 309 passing yards by him, 3 turnovers by you, 4 by him, 7 total turnovers. This one was a pretty close one as 2 quarterbacks just kind of went at it. 7 total sacks in this one as well. Tell me a little bit about your game against Minnesota.
What I'm calling the Detroit heart attack. I thought I had that game wrapped up in the first half, and then, boy, did something change in that second. I was making critical errors, making mistakes. Got down to there was about a minute and change left. He went for it, 4th and goal. I stopped it, thought I had just get out of the end zone, and I had the game won. We got to 3rd down, threw a pass out to DeAndre Swift. He fumbled it and gave up a touchdown. I had a minute to try and drive downfield. As soon as I saw that ball hit the ground, I thought I lost.
Yeah. Well, you end up, we'll talk about it a little later, but a couple of heart attacks in this postseason. This one, a little FPR break. It looks like Mr. Dalvin Cook broke that 80-20 rule. Something to keep in mind, guys. I know that you want to feed the horses, but got to make sure that we're sharing those loads, especially when we start getting in that like 22 to 25 range. That's a lot of carries. You got to make sure you're getting those backups enough carries. But this game was quite the one. Malcolm Rodriguez, he had 12 tackles on the game. Mr. Tracy Walker, an ex-Saint from last Madden, had 8 tackles on the game. Bunch of guys with tackles for losses. A couple guys with sacks. Hicks and Hutchinson each had 2. Rodriguez had 2. Or 1, I'm sorry. And then interception leader. I'm not even going to try to say his name, but you see him on the screen. There you go. You're the man. I can't say that, but he had 2 big interceptions. And the Detroit Lions survive. Then we get to my Saints game. We fall 23-17. The second half of this game was all about defense on both sides of the ball. 148 rushing yards for the Saints, 249 passing yards for the Saints. Yeah, that's not a typo. And only 55 passing yards for the New Orleans Saints. We had no answers for the user defensive line, but playing that made me want to ban user defensive line again. I'm picking up on some gimmicks here in the OMFL. You've send blitzes, and then you go play as a defensive lineman, get some insta sheds, and it's virtually impossible to pass the ball. Mr. Frank struggled today, only 80 yards passing. He was 8 for, I think, 68 for 18. That's not going to be a good day. Tua Tagovailoa played pretty decent, 2 touchdowns, but the 2 big interceptions, there were some nice interceptions too. I'm going to pat myself on the back. I got him to throw me a couple of them, but Ben Hunt. Yeah, Ben Hunt, 4 for 61. Kamara, 19 for 51. They did a good job on Kamara. McAllister, 3 for 30. But we just didn't have an answer. This one ended up having some FPR issues, but he and I talked about it. Thought we got on the same page. We'll kind of approach that subject here in a little bit. Saints fall. Pretty decent season, but quarterback issue was a problem the entire season. I kept wanting, my head kept telling me to go back to Jameis, but I just know long term for my franchise and this Madden, I just can't continue to invest playing time into Jameis Winston. I'm not going to pay that guy that kind of money as a starter. He's already 28, 29 years old. Just can't. There's not enough, return on investment there. So we had to stick with who we had. And, Frank struggled, but we do think that Franks can build on that next year, and we're gonna get a little perks that we're gonna pump into him this offseason. So hopefully he can get rid of that hair trigger that he has. So that sets up the Dallas Cowboys against the Atlanta Falcons, the Detroit Lions against the Washington Commanders, the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Miami Dolphins, the Cleveland Browns versus the Buffalo Bills. Let's go ahead and start over here in the AFC. The Chargers fall to the Miami Dolphins. Ever since the update, Pepper said his team didn't play like he expected them to play. Something changed. We didn't really mess with a whole lot, and I don't know, but it changed. And the Los Angeles Chargers fall to the Miami Dolphins. This guy put up 28 points between the second and third quarter, and the Chargers were just overwhelmed by the passing game. 151 rushing yards for the Miami Dolphins, 254 passing yards, not too bad, 280 passing yards for the Los Angeles Chargers, only 32 rushing yards, but 3 big turnovers ended up being what put him away. Pickerson, 3 touchdowns. I said Pickerson. It's Dickerson. Look, we couldn't call him Dickerson because the game wouldn't let us, even though he's a Madden-generated player. His name's Dickerson. I don't care what that screen says. So Dickerson, 3 touchdowns on the day, 5 sacks for Mr. Herbert as he throws 3 picks on the day. Did you get to see any of this? What do you think about the Los Angeles Chargers falling to the Miami Dolphins?
Didn't get to see it, but when I found out that he lost, I went, whoa. I thought the pass rush was going to be enough to slow down. I figured Kenny wouldn't have time to, find the deep ball. And it looks like I was completely incorrect because he only got sacked twice in the game.
Yeah, this was a bit of a weird one here. And we had 3 receivers go over 100 yards, which isn't too shocking between those 2 guys because they know how to air the ball out. Then it set up the Cleveland Browns beating the Buffalo Bills 27-3. The Cleveland Browns have been dominant all season long, and it continues right here. Only allowing 3 points. That was late in the third quarter, putting up all 27 points in the first half. And the Cleveland Browns just continue to be a team on a mission. 104 rushing yards for the Buffalo Bills, only 55 rushing yards for the Cleveland Browns, 182 passing yards to only 89 passing yards for the Buffalo Bills, 3 turnovers on the day. This one was really about the swarming defense of the Cleveland Browns, and they come away with a big victory. Great season by Bill, but Denbrew was a man on a mission.
Yep, most definitely. When you shut a team out and just give up essentially garbage time field goal, yeah, you can't doubt that was meant to be. Showed up, balled out, and now he's in the championship game.
And there's not even a whole lot to talk about. I mean, we did get 3 interceptions on the day, but there's nothing else sexy there. Just both teams struggled. The Cleveland Browns just had the better defense. Let's go ahead and talk about the Dallas Cowboys falling by 1 point to the Atlanta Falcons. I talked to D. Wayne because I didn't get to watch this game a little bit and just was like, yo, what happened, man? Like, we know how good of a player that Kobe can be. He started out really slow, but man, he has gotten red hot here late in the season and continues that streak against the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas said he threw, or D. Wayne said he threw a pick late, completely turned this game around. One turnover for each of these teams, 153 passing yards to 160 passing yards, 104 rushing yards to 96 rushing yards. Both of these teams were really, really close to each other, almost mirror images of each other. This one just was back and forth all game long, and Atlanta comes away with the big victory right here at the end. Desmond Ridder, he does outplay Dak Prescott, but he did get sacked 5 times. This was just a crazy game where no one really ran away with it. And Kyle Pitts, man, that's what Kyle Pitts does. 7 receptions for 126 rushing yards, receiving yards. Was that it was almost an FPR break. That was a really close one, but he didn't FPR break it. This was all about the defense on both sides. Yeah, just by a couple. What do you think about this one?
I played Wayne earlier in the year, and like I said, I beat myself in that game. I knew there's potential for one mistake he makes could cost them, and it turns out that, in his own words, he said the interception late cost them.
Yep, crazy game that I did not expect to see. I don't know why my computer is having a bit of a moment right now, but that's okay. That sets up your game against the Washington Commanders. 2 buddies outplaying each other. I got to watch the very end of this game, and I got to be honest, like, I still not sure what I watched exactly. This was just... It was just nuts. It was absolutely crazy to see how this one went down. And I'm still not 100% sure. My bad, guys. I just realized something. Let's get over here. That's where we want to be. I've been sitting here showing stats and everything, and goofy old me forgot it just on my face. My bad. That's on me. I'm so pumped about the playoffs and jumping into it. It's Halloween. Pumped up on candy and sugar. I was a little out of it, but I'm back now. I'm back. 267 total yards to 332 of the Detroit Lions. Something you've been doing really great all season long. 78 rushing yards to 72. 254 to 195. The passing yards, 3 turnovers to his 2. This game was, you were out, I think, by 10 or 14. It was something crazy like that. Late in this game, ends up getting some kind of like fumble on a quarterback run or something. I forget exactly how that, but he gets a fumble, ends up scoring a field goal on that one. Ensuing kickoff, hit sticks you. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Hit sticks you, gets another fumble. Am I flipping it?
You got that mixed up.
Well, there were some hit sticks, there were some fumbles, there were some touchdowns, and literally in like 2 minutes, I watched this one get away from you. Quite the game. Go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I had a game plan, and it started off not working, and then it got working, and I thought I had done enough. There was a field goal with about 2 minutes left, giving me the ball for a 6-point lead. I figured, okay, I'll try and get some yards, kill some more clock off. Then a flying user hit stick came in, and DJ Chark dropped the ball. Had to try and play conservative with my 6-point lead. Ran the ball down my throat, got the ball into the end zone. It was the 1-point game. Had a run with Howell to try to get to the sidelines, got hit, fumbled, lost the game off that.
3 fumbles in this game, which is not something that we see a lot of at all. Like, it's just, we're not a league that has a ton of fumbles. We had 3 fumbles in this game because of some FPR issues in my game, which I did not file an official complaint. I try not to file official complaints. It's been a fairly quiet season. We had some rough bumps early on, but we worked through those. I was not trying to stir things up in the playoffs, but with 2 games back to back with some pretty common FPR breaks, I did have to spin his tight end for this Atlanta Falcons game, but that doesn't give Detroit back any good feelings. It doesn't give me back. It is what it is. It happens. We are not robots. Sometimes things happen. It just sucks when it happens in a playoff game because it literally ends someone's season who's worked really, really hard. But look, Penguins is a past champion here. He's somebody that I have faith is going to get things figured out, and I feel like we're on the same page. I look, as much stuff as we give each other all the time around here sometimes, even though I feel like things are pretty good. Like we've got rid of a lot of bad vibes and bad energy in this game over the last 3 or 4 seasons. I feel like we got a lot of good dudes that all kind of get each other. I got to tip my cap to Trey. He handled it like a champion. He handled it like an OMFL member. Maybe, but you got back on the right foot really, really quick.
Yeah.
And
I do have to say, there was one hilarious sequence in this game. I just scored, I can't remember if I scored off a touchdown or a field goal, but I kicked him the ball. He took it immediately back on me. And I was like, oh, great. All that drive was for nothing. He proceeds to kick me the ball, and I took it right back on him.
Yeah, that's a hell of a sequence too. But it makes you feel good because I don't know about you, but giving up a kick return just feels like the grossest thing. Like especially after you score, like when you score and then you kick it off, and you're like, yeah, I got the score, I'm in the lead, or I tied it, or got it close, whatever it is for your situation. And then you kick it off and they return that score. It's just like, that's the worst thing ever. But you got one right back on him. But that sets up the Cleveland Browns against the Miami Dolphins. We don't have anything to look at, but this game was played. I don't know the score. I don't know anything about this game. I didn't get to watch it last night, spending some time with the wife after having to work the Saints game. But the Cleveland Browns did come away with the victory. Madden did what Madden does sometimes, even though they're doing less of it, it still did it. Did not record this game, so the Browns are going to be your representative in OMFL Bowl number 102. Back-to-back championship games for Mr. Denbrew. Congratulations. Not only one of my favorite human beings, but one of my favorite competitors to play against, even though he absolutely dominated me this year and dominated me last Madden whenever we met in OMFL Bowl number 101. Browns come away with the victory. This was my team of destiny all the way, but if I remember correctly, you didn't quite call the Browns to make it all the way.
I had Chargers Browns, and I figured the Chargers would get that little hump over. Well, they couldn't get by Miami, so.
And the reason I went with the Browns, and the reason I'll probably go with the Browns, and we'll get there in a second, in OMFL Bowl 102, is just he has it all. He's got a dominating defense. He's got an offense that can put up tons of points. Whatever Madden throws at him, whatever his opponent throws at him, he tends to be able to adjust. And this was a big victory. Dolphins went way further than I thought. They started out really hot in 102. But then kind of cooled off, and I really thought we're just going to fade away, and I didn't think they'd make it this far, but congratulations, everybody in the AFC, and congratulations to Denbrew for making it to OMFL Bowl 102. And then that sets up a pivotal matchup that we're going to see tonight at 8 o'clock Central, which is shocking. I figured it's Halloween. These guys are not going to play, but they are. They're going to play tonight. Kobe and his Falcons, Penguins and his Commanders. Talk about two guys that have been, Penguins, I think, is a back-to-back 2-time champion. Kobe's been there once and has been itching to get back. He's been right on the cusp. These are two dudes that will do whatever it takes to get to another OMFL Bowl. This is quite the matchup here, and I think it's going to be a matchup of quarterbacks. Is it Tua? Is it Ritter? Who's going to come out of this one? What do you think about the Commanders versus the Falcons?
Well, it was when the whole divisional rounds got set up, I laughed because it was 3/4 of the NFC was a friend group. So it was me, Penguin, and Kobe. We're all good friends. I would have wished that it was me versus Kobe in this one. Obviously, we know what that happened, but to go in and have to pick apart two of my good friends, it's really interesting. I've now played Penguins twice this season. If his pass rush is on, and you're in trouble. It doesn't matter if you have. I've had Jared Goff in the situation. Sam Howell was in the situation. Ritter provide something that I didn't, and that gives him the mobility option to get away from the Chase Youngs. And I believe Montez Sweat is returning for this game. So it's going to be, can Kobe deal with the persistent pass rush that Penguins brings from the likes of Sweat, Young, Allen, and crew?
Two questions. We got to talk about it, so hopefully this doesn't frustrate anybody, but if it does, sorry, I didn't cause it. We got to talk about it. It's here. Number one, I'll give my comments after. Atlanta Falcons. Sometimes when you get those CPU games, it kind of skews how people view you getting to the OMFL Bowl if you make it, but I feel like he's earned it beating the Dallas Cowboys. Do you feel like there's any kind of asterisk next to the Falcons if they make it to OMFL Bowl 102?
Everybody's going to put that marker on him because obviously he went up. The computer that he took over against was D Money. Everybody's going to put the asterisk. It's always there. Unless you beat D Money, you didn't really do anything. That's kind of been the trend. So, yes, but in my opinion, he counteracted that by going up against Wayne and actually competitively beating him.
Washington Commanders. 2 pretty bad FPR games back-to-back in the playoffs. He's got a player suspended. Is there an asterisk next to the Commanders if he wins this game?
I don't know the exact details to what the FPR is in your game. I think there's kind of that asterisk in mind, given that hit stick fumble is potentially the reason he beat me. I think if he can come out with a crisp, clean game against Kobe and then goes up against Denbrew and beats him with a crisp, clean game, I think that kind of levels that out. But if he has any questions, I think there's definitely that asterisk on it.
Who you got? Falcons, Commanders, before I give my thoughts.
You know what? I stuck with it. I said the number 7 seed was going to go to the Super Bowl. I'm going with it. I think the suspension on Gesicki will be enough to tilt in the favor for Kobe to come in and effectively run a defense. Because now you're really looking at slowing down Aaron Jones, which is very doable, and stopping Terry McLaurin.
Here are my thoughts. Atlanta Falcons, no asterisks. A little bit of an easier road to get there, but anytime you go to the Dallas Stadium and beat that coach and that team, 1 point or 100 points, that's something to hang a hat on. And he has no light task in front of him with the Washington Commanders. Penguins, I struggled with Penguins in my playoff game because the stats that I got from my scouting watching him, he did almost the complete opposite. Very man-heavy defense guy that didn't blitz a lot. Yet in my game, he blitzed a ton more. Even to a point where I thought it was an FPR break until I finally sat and did the stats. And it was over 35%, but it was like way higher than what his stats were showing. And because of that, I just think Penguins may throw some curveballs. When I played Kobe, I did beat him in that last game of the season, and beating Kobe is just feels impossible every time you play that guy. He's a tough cookie. I face him twice every season, every league, every year, and he's hard to play up against. But when I did my scouting against him, what it said he did is exactly what he did. And so it allowed my game plan to stay a little bit more firm. Whereas with Penguins, I had to completely rethink that game plan and about like how to approach him and how to kind of face him. And so no asterisks for Penguins, even though I will say it to everyone here. FPR is a higher standard in the playoffs because you are ending someone's season. And yeah, we got another season coming. But that's still like 8, 9, 10 weeks, whatever it takes us to get through a season. That's that many human weeks of energy and effort to build a team and to get to this point. And when you break rules to end that person's season, it just means more. And it's just like there's a higher standard in the playoffs. And so we all got to do that. And we all have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. But I'm taking Washington in this game. everything in the OMFL is about matchups. And yeah, Washington's going to lose their tight end, but he does run a lot of two tight end. I think he's going to be just fine. I'm interested to see against me. He broke an FPR with having the two wide receiver loaded formations where you got two receivers to one side and the other side is just a tight end. He ran that way too many times versus me, and I didn't get to watch his game with you, so I don't know if he mixes that up, if that changed his offense.
Away from that.
So clearly it doesn't affect his offensive lot because he put up 34 points against a really good defensive player in you. So I think this is what's going to be the deciding factor in this game. In my game versus him, again, didn't watch versus you, so maybe you have a different outlook here. He sent a ton of blitzed me a lot more, and when he blitzed me, he usured the defensive line with those blitzes. And so not only were you having to like shed and move your offensive line to give you some extra protection and keep in blockers to give you extra protection, because he was he got a lot of like quick sheds. And so not only did you have extra men coming at you, you had the quick shed of the user defensive line. And with a young rookie quarterback like I had, or actually second year quarterback, but first time playing quarterback, it's the same thing as you have with Desmond Ritter. I think you're going to see a lot of those hair trigger sensitivities kick in where it's a bad pass, even though the defensive lineman isn't like super close to you. They just have to get like in the general area, and sometimes it'll trigger. I think you're going to see a lot of that. And if Penguin sticks to that game plan and attacks Kobe and the Falcons, you can see Ritter turn the ball over. I think Pitts is going to be key in this victory. And we're going to see, can Penguins, get Kobe to make some tough passes to Pitts and maybe pick him off. I like Washington's receivers better. I think he'll spread you out more. And I just like Washington's user of the defensive line. You've already kind of talked about he's getting some players back in Sweat. I think with the blitzing, with the usering, it just doesn't set up as a good matchup. I got the Washington Commanders winning this one and going off to OMFL Bowl 102 to face Denbrew and the Cleveland Browns. And if that happens, way too many D's. We have even more, but we got rid of those D's. That's a different D, though. I like the Cleveland Browns to win it all. I've been calling this for quite some time. I think we're going to get another back-to-back champion here in the OMFL. The Browns just feel loaded. They can get to you without using their defensive line, but when he does he's a beast. He uses really well with the linebacker. He's got great offensive game plan. I don't care who comes out of the NFC. I just feel like firepower, the Browns have too much. What do you see happening in OMFL Bowl 102?
Well, I have Kobe going there. I want to see my friend win because it's awesome. Friends winning stuff, it's great. He's so dominant. How can you go against Denbrew? He's smashing people with his run game. He's dotting people with his pass game, and his defense is backing it up. It's hard to go against him.
Yep, I agree with you. It is a tough pick. Now let's open up some mailbag before we get everybody out of here. Let me make sure I got everything good to go here before we. Yep, we do. We got the mailbag up and going. Got a couple of questions. My goodness, a couple more than a couple of questions. The first one, see if I can get my old eyes. I got this thing so small so it doesn't mess up my computer. My old eyes can't do it. So Denbrew says, hi, Nate. Currently, the OMFL is home to 5 former champions and several others who are very close to winning the OMFL Bowl. My question involves the overall quality of players in the league today compared to previous cycles. How does this group stack up against some of the better players you've seen over the years? That is a tough question. Trey, you've been here for quite some time, so I'll give you some time to think about it. This is what makes that question tough to answer, Denbrew, and that's because every Madden is so drastically different. And some Maddens have set up better for some people's play style than others. And so I just think it's hard to separate the way a game plays from the actual skill of players. But I would put up this league of owners against almost any of the previous ones. I mean, you've got you, who I'm calling to be a back-to-back champion. You've got Penguins a back-to-back. I'm going to leave somebody out, so I'm going to mess this up. So maybe I don't go there. There are a lot of champions, a lot of back-to-back champions. I've said it for quite some time. I think Dwayne could be competitive if he ever tried to play competitive Madden for money. I think Trey would be competitive. Penguins would be competitive. Kobe would be competitive. D-Money, I think, literally could be a champion in the Madden world if he ever wanted to go that way. I just think that guy's sick. There are a lot of really amazing players, and the way this rule set and this Madden is playing, we see it. And look, the vote is out for Switch. This wasn't in part of the question, but I think it plays into it. The keep the current rule set or go back to what we had last Madden. It's up for vote. It looks like it's going to be one as keep, even though there were a couple more, not a ton more, but there are a couple more guys who swapped back to let's go back. I think the current vote is 18-7. So it's a few more. It's probably 3 or 4 more than what we had earlier in the season. But the point of that rule is to make games strategic and to bring parity. Argue as you may with me, that is what the NFL wants. And if you look at the NFL right now, there are a ton of 2 to 4 win teams. Literally, the Saints are tied for the NFC South lead, and they have the number 10 pick in the draft if the NFL draft started today. That is the parity that is in the NFL. That's what we wanted here in the OMFL. Look at the championship games, a 2 seed versus a 5 seed. A 5 seed versus a 7 seed. We had teams like the Chiefs, like the Bengals, like the Dolphins, the Chargers, who, again, I'm putting owner to team. So some of these are teams we've seen here before, but these are brand new owners. The Falcons made a run. The Lions are always there, but the Washington Commanders are making a run. The Vikings made a run. We're seeing a lot of parity in the OMFL, and that's what I want, and that's what I've always wanted. And I think games like this rule has opened up so many things. I just was trying it. I was just hey, let's try it. Let's just see. One league does it. We tried it for the preseason. I was it's pretty cool. Let's try it for half a season. People are let's keep doing it for the whole season. And it opened up so many more plays in the playbook. And I think really good defensive players continue to shine. I'm not somebody to pat myself on the back, but look, I have one of the best defenses in the league, so I know if I can do it, anybody can do it. So anyway, I've rambled a ton to finally get to this side. I love the parity we have here, and I think it elevates everyone's skill level, and I would put this skill level up against anybody's. Trey, I rambled too much. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, I definitely think this is probably the best NFC we've had in a while, because I just looking through, 10 out of the 16 teams finished above 500. Obviously that comes in on the flip side of the AFC that they had 6 of the teams, or 7, sorry. All the teams that went to the playoffs were above 500. It shows you that, it feels like there's if almost looking at this as a WWE aspect, which you'll understand, Nate, it's almost like the NFC's become the main roster, and we got the developmental in the AFC, because it's looking like that way. It's like the AFC guys go there and they're learning how to play that version of Madden, and then it seems like they transfer over to the NFC, and somebody transfers back, and it's very much you learn while you're in the AFC, and you sharpen your iron in the NFC. And I think that's a great dynamic to have.
Yeah.
I'd love to flip it so it's, iron sharpening iron on both AFC and NFC. But it's cool to see guys like Denver and Brady last year, and guys that you didn't really expect go and come up against the guys in the NFC that you expected just to always win. And the AFC, I think, took majority of the OMFL Bowls in Madden 22 or 21. if I'm correct.
It's hard to argue that. And we've seen the AFC get dominated by good owners. It was dominated by Penguins for a long time. It was dominated by Brady for a long time. Now it's being dominated by Denver, whereas the NFC seems to like share that power. So it's hard to argue that point. I think it's a really good point. Shocks fan says, what do you think was the biggest factor in quarterback's high interception rate this season? What do you think, Trey?
Everybody started the year off with, "Hey, we can put our ball in tight spaces and not have to worry." That wasn't a thing at the beginning of the year. A lot of teams were, "Okay, I got this guy. He can go get the ball." Not necessarily the case. If they were tight fitting balls, it was either knocked down, tipped up, and picked. I know there was a few of us that caught on quick, and throughout the year we just adapted as small little shifts happened from EA putting in updates in and the little slider adjustments. If people slow the game down just a little bit more, I think the interception numbers go way down next season.
Yeah, I think the last update will help them go down. I think I agree with everything you said. I think it's just new game, new mechanics, and everybody trying to learn those. And I think also when we first got going, those first like 8 weeks or so, those DBs were something else, and they were making plays on all kinds of throws. And so I think we've seen that even out just a little bit. So I'm interested to see what happens next season. It'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on, but it's definitely something I'm constantly watching. He says, so far, one thing that you like about Madden and one thing you dislike about Madden. One thing I like is the ability to have more finer control over passing. That comes with a learning curve. It comes with time. You got to put time in. And Lord knows I've had to, but I like that ability is there. What's one thing you like?
I love that. I personally, I know some people might hate. I love that the gang tackling system once again works. I know there was previous iterations a couple of years back where you get the gang tackles and it seemed like it did nothing. Now you're getting the gang tackles where a guy will hold a guy up, and I experienced it in the game with the Commanders. I got Aaron Jones up, and some dude just came running in, and Superman punched the ball out of Aaron Jones' hands. I love that aspect because that's more of a real, authentic experience from what I've played football and from what I've watched. You've got a guy that's bigger than you. You try to slow him up and have somebody else come in and help you out.
Madden 23, I could go two different ways. Probably both of them are very close to being 1A, 1B. I won't talk about one of them. I'll just mention it. Momentum. I love the concept of momentum. I hate the way that they're playing momentum out. I just don't think it's way too powerful. The one I'd go with is offensive line blocking. I still think in the run game, they're fullbacks and offensive linemen that don't block guys literally in front of them. And I'll never understand that I have literally a top 3 right tackle in Ryan Ramczyk, and he gives up 12 sacks a year because he gets insta shed just because Madden decided he's going to give up an insta shed. The insta sheds drive me nuts. I think the insta sheds should be for elite players versus non-elite tackles, and maybe a handful of times a year. It just depends. Like, it's hard to put a number on. They happen 8 to 10 times a game, and it's very hard. It's already hard enough to step up in the pocket like real NFL quarterbacks. The insta shed thing just drives me insane. One thing that you hate about Madden 23?
It's got to be DB interactions are still buggy in a sense. I've watched a few games where a dude will throw a pass right to a guy that has a safety sitting right there, and the safety just waits for the guy to catch it before he does anything. That's not something like he's either going to go up and try and get the ball himself, or he's going to try and break it off or knock it away from the receiver. I'd like to see more of those when it's the guy going deep. the DB doesn't just stand there like, okay, let him catch, let him catch, let him catch. I'd like to see more of them being more aggressive in that aspect.
It's better, right? But it still needs a lot of work. D. Wayne's got a rash of questions here. Some of them will be quick, though. What's the best advice that you would give a new owner here? I'm interested to hear your take on that.
If you're new here, reach out to guys that are, especially the top end of the guys. You see guys like Wayne, you see guys like D Money, myself, all of the guys. Reach out, ask for your advice. I know at one point in the season, I had Outlaw come and ask me if I could help him figure out how to do better with Kenny Pickett. I did. I offered the advice I could. It never hurts to ask somebody. We're not in a situation where we're so competitive, like we don't want to help you get better. The whole point of, I think, entirely of the OMFL is to have a bunch of guys play, have fun, enjoy the game, and get better at it as we go on season from season from season.
The OMFL is a lot like life for me. And so I'd say three things. Number one, throw yourself all the way into it. Don't halfway it. Don't stay on the fringes. I think you get the most out of this experience when you throw yourself all the way into it. You're on streams, you're in the chats, you're checking out other people's streams, you're talking, you're doing all that stuff. So throw yourself into it. You're making content. I wish this league made more content. Number two, build really good relationships. Like Trey said, just reach out, get to know people, ask them about their life. What do they do for a living? Do they have a family? Like I haven't got to do it in the last couple of weeks because I've been so busy, but in a couple of times a year, guys will get DMs from me, and it's just like checking in, just how are you, with no other kind of intention. Matter of fact, Denver messaged me this morning asking me how I am. I think probably the only person that's asked me how I am in the last 3 or 4 years. And I was like, is this a regular check-in or is this a check-in that comes with bad news? Because I think I'm always waiting for that. And I've had that same experience the other side where people say they see my name and they think that they did something wrong, or they think they're in quote unquote trouble, even though like what kind of trouble are you going to get in from me? I'm nobody. But it's like, I don't want that. I just want to get to know guys because I care about people. And then the last one, avoid negativity. Avoid negative DMs. The phrase that drives me really crazy as a commissioner is when people are like, I was talking to so-and-so. I was talking to this group of people who won't come tell you. It's just like always negative. And it's like, just avoid negative people. Avoid negative DMs. Avoid people who are just nasty. Just avoid it. Avoid them like the plague. Run from them. Block them. Do whatever it takes. Hopefully no one in the OMFL is like that, but just avoid negativity. If there's an issue, face it head on and get through it. Number two, he says he enjoyed the parity, unpredictability of the playoffs. What do you think attributes to that? What do you think about that, Trey? I think for me, it is a combination of three things. The first one, we had a lot of player movement, and we had a lot of guys willing to try on some new teams this Madden, and this is the first season, and so a lot of people had swapped around teams. Number two, it's a new Madden, new mechanics. That first season's always kind of up in the air as people learn, and so we've seen teams kind of start off hot, cool off, or kind of get hot as the season went on. I think that's just people learning how to play the game. And then number three, I think the rule that we put in on defense changed some things. I don't think it was drastic, but it changed it enough where it did kind of bring a little bit more parity to guys who maybe weren't as quick on switching or weren't as quick. I think it's easy to say that there were owners here that knew how to stay within FPR, but still call plays that took advantage of AI flaws because we could switch, right? You could be out of position, but quickly switch on a after the catch or on a running play that allowed you the ability to get back into position, even though the AI maybe was out of position. That is now kind of gone. And so anyway, I think those three things combined. What do you think is attributed to the parity?
I definitely think a lot of it has to do with people have to play defensive differently. I noticed it myself. Last year, I would bite a lot on the run. when it was for a play action. This season, I've been backing off and waiting until I know that running back has the ball because I don't want to commit myself into a hole where he's not going. I want to make sure I know exactly where he's going, so I'm meeting him at the hole. Or, if he's going outside the hole, I can catch up to him and stop him from getting big plays off.
This is not one that I don't think will fit for you because I don't think you were around when this guy was around. But Dwayne asked me if I've heard from Chaotix recently. I haven't. That unfortunately was a relationship that ended badly. And if there's one thing I know about my Cajun brethren, once people make up their mind, you're probably not going to change that mind unless time just kind of passes. And so I still have him on PlayStation Network, and I see him on from time to time, but I don't mess with him. I wish I could. I wish we could figure things out and get him back. And I highly suggest any of you to reach out to him and see how he is. Even if you don't have him on PlayStation Network, hit me up. I'll give you his PSN. But Chaotix was a guy. We would not be grown folks if it weren't for Chaotix. He's somebody that I miss, but one of the many situations that I think is telling of things that I have to continue to grow in. But one of the guys I put in leadership, and our two leadership styles didn't mesh, and that happened with Maniac. I think it's happened a little bit with little Koch and I as we figure out each other. I don't know what I do wrong. I think I'm maybe two hands. I don't know. Who knows? Clearly it's a Nate issue because it keeps happening, but a guy that just got enough of Nate and needed to go do something else, and that's sucks because he's a good dude and somebody that I wish was still around. So yeah, anyway, reach out to him, Dwayne. You seem to be, everyone loves Dwayne, and no one seems to love Nate, but everyone loves Dwayne. Dimbrew, last question. Nate Trey, without stating the obvious, D-Money Dwayne, who is someone that always gives you a tough game and you have trouble beating? Who is your kryptonite? That's a good question. Who's your kryptonite?
Oddly enough, it's been Penguins. I've struggled with them. I don't know why. I guess it's that student versus teacher mentality. I taught him a lot of what he knows, and he's using it against me. It's almost like I'm paying for being a good human.
I would say mine really is going to be all the top dogs, the Penguins. I don't get to play Trey very often, but when I do, it's just like all the top dogs are going to be tough. I think those are also obvious.
Next season, mate.
Yeah, I would also say Kobe would be a real easy one to say. I just can't figure that dude out, and I got lucky this season. Two of them I'll go with. One I've always said here, and the other I have two, but I just don't get to play him very often. It would be Twinkie. The dude's just like a pest. I don't know why I can't. He's my kryptonite. So is Panther Nation. Like, golly, all three of those. Kobe, Panther Nation, and Twinkie, man, they made me earn it every time we hit the field. Here's one that would shock people, and it kind of drives me nuts. And I've told him this before. I don't know if he believes me. Outlaw. I don't know what it is. Outlaw has my number. And no, it feels like no matter what I do, Outlaw bests me every single time. And it drives me nuts because I'm like, everyone else handles Outlaw easy, and then I play him and he like plays his best game ever. Priest is another one that I would kind of put up there. It's like I struggle with those guys for some reason. Trey, thank you for another great Press Pass Live. This one went way longer than I thought it would. Thank you for your mailbag questions. It's been a really good season so far. And we're getting here right at the end. So tonight we're going to get Falcons Commanders, and then we're going to get to OMFL Bowl 102. Give me the question.
How long has it been since you had a full season with the co-host?
Ooh, a long time. Yeah, it's been a while. I keep trying to twist Dwayne's arm to get here, but now we're doing it on Mondays. We got to find one that he's not working. But it's been awesome, man. I love having another voice to kind of bounce ideas off of, and just not hearing me talk for 45 minutes is a good thing. So I appreciate you doing this. And Mondays seem to be popular. They're getting a lot of views, and people are getting a lot of eyeballs on it. So I think it's something that'll stay for at least a little bit. We'll just give it a run, a little OMFL Press Pass Live on the drive home. I think it'd be a good thing. So it's been awesome, man. So tonight we'll find out who represents the NFC, and then hopefully they'll set up a time where I can call the game, and we'll see if Trey's free or cool. We'll see if you're free, and we'll see if Dwayne's free, and we'll get a nice little stream set up, and we'll call the game. So for Trey, for the OMFL board, thank you guys for tuning in. I love you. I appreciate you. You matter no matter what. It's a big thing. And I just want to say it here. When I say you matter, I mean it, especially for you dudes. We live in a world that says we can't talk and we should just suppress our feelings, but know that you matter, man. And whatever you're going through, reach out to somebody and let them know that you need something, you need some help. Know that I'm always here. So just know that you matter, and I love seeing your faces here. And Dawson unfortunately had to retire because of just family and just too much, and he tried his best for the season, and he's just one of those good dudes that we're going to miss. And I hate when good dudes leave, but I've shifted my ideas about our chat and our community over the past couple of years. Usually I kind of protected the OMFL. I want it to be for owners only, but I've changed that. So if you're an OMFL fan, you now have typing permissions in our chat. So come hang out with us. I love you guys. Appreciate you. Happy Halloween, and be safe out there. Make sure you're being safe with you and your family and your kids. And we'll see you next Monday. Or actually, we'll see you before then. We'll see you later this week for OMFL Bowl 102. And then we'll be off to the off season. So we'll see you soon. All right, guys. Peace.
Smash that like and subscribe.